Welcome to a web edition of No Pulp. Zach Lang and Adam Unger here with you to talk all things NCAA. A lot of basketball coming up and National Signing Day as well. Zach, what are we starting with?
Well, you already mentioned it. Let's start with basketball. Duke and Virginia have faced each other for the second time this season, and to no one's surprise, Duke won yet again. Virginia is one of the best teams in the country. There's no doubt about that. But the fact is, Duke is just way, way better, especially with all these freshmen on their roster. R.J. Barrett, Zion Williamson, you can see it there, continue to show out for Duke, but Virginia couldn't get it done again.
And we've already talked about it, one of the best versus the best. And when you have such a high-powered offense with all of those stellar freshmen, I'm not sure if there's anyone else on Duke's regular season schedule that has a chance of beating them.
Actually, there is, and they've actually already played them once this season. It's a lot of pulp. Syracuse has the chance to beat them yet again.
No.
And this is why. Yes, they're going to have 4 talented freshmen back for Duke.
So it's going to be a 30-point loss, because that's what it would have been if that was the way it was in Cameron Indoor a couple weeks ago.
Here's the thing. I'm not saying this from a talent perspective. Obviously, Cam Reddish and Trey Jones are going to be much better for Duke, but those are 4 starting freshmen that have played for a crowd of 8,000 barely per game. The Carrier Dome's going to be sold out for this one. They're probably going to set a new attendance record.
36,000?
The attendance record is 35,446. The Carrier Dome was sold out a week ago, and they're already going to break that record. They are 4 freshmen. You put them under those lights, put them in front of 35,000 plus crazy Central New Yorkers, there's a chance for them to fold.
I've seen so many other ACC crowds get so much more into their games than Syracuse has. In terms of an actual fan base, fan to fan, Syracuse's fan base isn't the strongest that we've seen. Plus, when you take another look at it, if Old Dominion can walk into the Carrier Dome and beat Syracuse, so can number 2 Duke with 4 of the best freshmen in the country. This isn't going to be close. The crowd is not going to play that much of a factor.
Okay, but you said Syracuse's crowd isn't one of the best you've seen in the ACC. That's true. But when a contender like Duke comes to the Carrier Dome, then the crowd shows out. Because that attendance record I mentioned to you, 35,446, guess who Syracuse played on that game?
Duke. I know.
Which is why they have a chance to show out again. That was a Duke team that is
so much worse than the one that they're facing this year.
Yes, okay, that's true. This Duke team is on steroids, basically. But that doesn't mean that Syracuse can't beat them for a second time this season.
I strongly, strongly disagree. I don't think Syracuse has a shot. These guys are going to come into this game looking for revenge. Duke has said, we wear black on the road because it's our opponent's funeral.
Okay.
That is the mentality that they are coming into the Carrier Dome with.
All right. So
I just want to make sure you understand that.
All right, well, we'll agree to disagree, but anyway, let's stick with Duke. Zion Williamson obviously has caught the spotlight for a while, but 2 guys have had differing opinions on whether or not this guy is actually a fantastic prospect, and that starts with Jalen Rose. Jalen Rose doesn't think that he's a good prospect at all.
No, he doesn't. He said that he wouldn't even start on the Fab 5.
Which is wrong.
Zion Williamson would start over Jalen Rose.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that one.
But here's where I agree. I don't see him as an MVP caliber player in the NBA. I don't see him on that next level. He's so one-dimensional. He is a physical specimen. He is a physical specimen. What he does great. But he is not an all-around player who will be able to take over an NBA game.
One-dimensional. He's a freak athlete, one of the best we have seen in our time. Is he a better prospect than MJ?
Disagree.
I would say yes. Is he a better prospect than LeBron James? I would say no.
Wait. Who threw out MJ? Was that Scotty?
Yes, that was Scotty Pippen.
Right? So you're Team Scotty on this, not Team Jalen.
I am Team Scotty on this because I think he's a better prospect than MJ. Than LeBron? No. But here is why I think Zion is a fantastic prospect. He is the freakest athlete we have seen in our generation. He is 6'7", 285 pounds, and has the thickest one-pack I have seen on any athlete ever. His vertical is insane. I know. The Virginia game we just saw, did you see that
His head
block?
can get up over the rim. I wouldn't be surprised if he could jump standing and hit the shot clock.
Yeah.
That would not surprise me at all. But here's the way that Scottie Pippen phrased it. Since Michael Jordan. So that leaves out Shaq. That leaves out Tim Duncan. That leaves out AI. That leaves out LeBron James. That leaves out Anthony Davis, who I could see the argument of Williamson over Anthony Davis. But the first 4 that I mentioned, in terms of prospects, over Zion any day of the week. It's not close. He's not going to reach that caliber that quickly. He'll be an all-star. Don't get me wrong. He'll be an all-star. I don't know if he's a perennial MVP.
He's going to be a star in this league, and you know. But let's stick with the NCAA basketball with this one now, because we've seen a lot of tripping in the past couple of games. Specifically, there was an incident that occurred with Texas Tech and with West Virginia, and it was not pretty. So the background on it is Logan Rao was sitting on the bench for West Virginia and tripped an opponent from the bench. And this wasn't your normal sticking the leg out guy falling over. over. He wrapped his leg around this guy, and he fell. This had a chance for a lot of injury, but in my opinion, I think the NCAA should go down a lot harsher on these athletes.
I agree. That could have been so ugly for Matt Mooney. It should be so much more than a flagrant 2, at least a 1-game suspension, especially for something like that where it's obviously so intentional. You know, with Grayson Allen, you already mentioned him. He comes to mind when you start to talk about these kinds of things. He was on the graphic too. You start to think about some of the things that he did. Those were in-game situations where you might not completely be in control of your body as you're coming down from getting a rebound, or you might not totally be in control as you're extending to get out on a 3. This is someone on the bench who knew what he was doing. I can't believe he's not suspended.
Right, and this is one of the dirtiest plays I think I've seen in the NCAA in a very, very long time. And the one thing I want to stress is that there have been a ton of injuries going on in basketball recently, specifically leg injuries. Victor Oladipo, Karis LeVert, Gordon Hayward. We've seen some of these freak injuries come out, and are these results of tripping? No. But are we going to wait around until it does? No. What the NCAA should be doing is cracking down on this immediately before it becomes a problem and it leads to a career-altering injury.
None of those injuries have been trips, but I agree. If it keeps going at this rate, it's going to be something. So the pros, they already have suspensions. NCAA should follow suit. So now let's change gears from basketball to football. National Signing Day has come and gone, and a lot of teams made a lot of moves. But, Zach, who's your one winner?
Well, my one winner, actually, I have 2 winners. It's the top 2 you see right there, Alabama and Georgia.
Because number 1, you got to pick 1.
Nah, I'm picking 2 in this one. Because the SEC is just a powerhouse when it comes to picking recruits. You look at Georgia. They are the 2nd team in the country right now. And yeah, they lost Justin Fields to the transfer portal, but the Dogs needed to do something, and they got a huge upgrade, but instead it was on the other side of the ball. It was defense. They got the highest-rated high school player in defensive end Nolan Smith and the highest-rated JUCO player in Jermaine Johnson. So a massive upgrade that's definitely going to help them for next year. But I want to talk about Alabama for a second as well, because when you think about Alabama, they are an offensive line farm for the NFL in this one.
And they lost one to Tennessee. They lost a 5-star offensive tackle to Tennessee. They're my winner for National Signing Day. They come in with the 12th ranked class, and that's still at least 5th in the SEC, which is absurd when you think about the SEC of football, but they're on a different level from any of the other Power 5 conferences top to bottom. They also stole linebacker Henry To'oTo'o. I really, really like what Jeremy Pruitt is building at Tennessee. 2 years of being a DC at Georgia, 2 years of being a DC at Alabama, and now he's in charge of his own program, and he is stealing recruits out from under the rugs of his predecessor.
Yes, but Nick Saban is easily he's the best coach of our time, in my opinion, as far as college football goes.
I don't disagree.
Look, 26 4- and 5-star players already, an incredible level of freshman talent in this one. And he not only is he a great coach, he's a great recruiter. And it's clear year in and year out that this guy is able to attract some of the best talent.
Well, that's why Alabama is where Alabama is. Think about it, though. Jeremy Pruitt, a 2nd-year guy, stole a 5-star and a 4-star recruit from Alabama. Both of them had offered them. Darnell Wright, excuse me. He was committed to Alabama, decommitted, reopened his recruiting, and Tennessee got him. For a 2nd-year head coach, in the grand scheme of things, when you talk winning, Alabama wins every year. Tennessee won.
Well, talking about winning, let's see who can win enough to make it on the bubble. And we're not talking about Syracuse, surprisingly. So who's your last team in, shifting back to basketball?
I've got Indiana as my last team in for the men's, and here's why. Yeah, they had a 7-game skid, and I know that's what you're going to come at me with, so I'm just going to take that right out of the gate.
It's not a pretty one.
It was not good, but here's the thing. 4 of those losses were Michigan twice, Maryland, and Purdue. So you can't ask them to win all of those games. And then to boot, they snapped it by beating Michigan State.
Yeah, but they lost to a ton of people in between.
Well, if it's a what have you done for me lately, you've got Michigan State and you've got the star power and Romeo Langford and Juwan Morgan, and don't try to tell me that doesn't factor in, because I know it does. I think Indiana's still going to get in. If they take care of their business the rest of the way, they're still well above 500. I think they'll be all right.
See, you can see it up there. I think it's Alabama. Alabama, I think, is the last team in. And the SEC is turning, surprisingly, into a fantastic basketball conference. But looking at them specifically, they have ranked wins against Ole Miss and especially Kentucky. Kentucky, one of the top 10 teams right now in the country, which is a perennial powerhouse. So looking at Alabama, I think they absolutely have a reason to be one of those last teams in, if not the very last team in.
Well, we'll have to see, but a lot of those fates are going to be decided by some games that are coming up tonight, so let's take a look at those. Not tonight. Tennessee over Kentucky. What do you got?
Tennessee. They're the #1 team in the country right now, and it's not even disputed. They're low-key becoming the best team in the SEC.
I agree. I think Grant Williams goes off. How about UVA and UNC, number 3, number 8?
It's got to be Virginia. Like, I know we kind of trashed Virginia a little bit earlier in this because of how they lost to Duke twice in the season, but the fact is Virginia is still a really, really good team. They may not be able to be on top of the ACC, but they still have a really good methodical offense, and it's able to work for them.
I agree, and I think that defense is going to stifle UNC. They've been a little hot and cold in a couple games, so I think Virginia is going to.
But what about some Big Ten action? Let's talk 15 Purdue, 24 Maryland. Who you got in this?
Bruno Fernando is going to eat for Maryland. I got Maryland. It's not that much of an upset since both of these teams are ranked, but I think Maryland's going to pull it out.
See, it's definitely going to be a nail-biter. They already played earlier this season. Purdue got the edge on them 62-60, and I like the Boilermakers in this one. Honestly, they don't get enough love. They're second in the Big Ten right now. I think they can pull it off.
Big Ten's a really strong conference. They've got some huge wins. Sticking to the Big Ten, Michigan State, Wisconsin. What do you think?
I like Wisconsin for the upset. Wisconsin's already beaten Michigan once this season, and Michigan State lost 3 straight recently to Purdue, Indiana, and Illinois. For a top 10 team, that's not characteristic. Enough room to get in their heads and for Wisconsin to pull it out.
You know what else isn't characteristic for a top 10 team? A 4-game skid, and that win for Indiana needs to look as good as it gets if Indiana's still going to be the last one in. That's all we've got for No Pulp for this web edition. Thanks so much for watching. You can check us out in all of our content at CitrusTV Sports on Twitter and on CitrusTV.com. For Zach and our entire crew, I'm Adam. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.